Welcome in, everybody, to Studs and Duds, the most comprehensive NFL player review series on the internet. Today, we are going to be reviewing the rising and falling players from NFL Week 4. Before we get started, I do want to remind you guys that the ratings changes that you see in this video do come from my own custom Madden roster. So while it is a video game there, these are my perceptions of these players in real life, and these ratings changes are derived from the film. Also, before we get started, please do hit that like button down below to really help support my channel and this video. Also, if you enjoy this video or using the roster in Madden, I do ask that you consider a donation via PayPal, Venmo, or on Patreon, where you will also get exclusive content like film breakdowns and my weekly NFL picks. But let's go ahead and get started reviewing Week 4 of the NFL season. Starting off with our star of the week, Cordarrelle Patterson, who apparently decided that he's just going to be the best player in the NFL now. It's amazing that the Falcons have found a creative way to use the running back, receiving, kick returning hybrid player, but they can't find out how to use their uber athletic Kevin Durant comparison that they've got playing tight end that they spent the 4th overall pick on. But man, that is not to take away from Cordarrelle Patterson, who has really translated both his experience playing receiver throughout his career and his unbelievable ability with the ball in his hands, who doesn't always get enough credit for being the powerful runner that he is. Now in this outside zone system, he is being deployed like Derrick Henry, although with receiving ability, also going out, flexing out at wide receiver. Defenses just don't really know how to account for him from a substitution personnel standpoint. The sustainability of this is what's going to be really interesting. Obviously, Cordarrelle is very talented and well-deserving of the star of the week. The sustainability of this is what's going to be really fascinating. Do teams kind of learn how to account for him? Do the big plays start to drop off? Or is he just going to be this amazing do-it-all modern flex player? He surely has been one of the more exciting players in the NFL and definitely the most surprising player in the NFL so far this season. And then our dud of the week is going to be quarterback Baker Mayfield of the Cleveland Browns. Extremely disappointing start for Baker. I really talked him up coming into the year, thought it was going to be a big season for him, even mentioned MVP potential. He is a long way from that, just not playing very good football right now. And the biggest thing with Baker Mayfield straight up has been his accuracy, just missing throws, but not making the best decisions on third down either. And it's self-explanatory, man. Baker is not playing very good football this season. The Browns defense is carrying the load right now, as well as the run game. But if the Browns really want to be true Super Bowl contenders, which they are, but if they want to be serious about it, Baker's going to have to start playing better football. I think he will turn this thing around, but a deserved drop for Baker Mayfield this week. And now let's get into the games, starting with Thursday Night Football. Trevor Lawrence, as I mentioned last week, and we talked about some of these ratings last week as well, because I did record like right after that Thursday Night Football game. But anyway, Trevor Lawrence going to get one of the ratings points back after dropping down 2 last week, finally starting to look like that number 1 overall pick, dropping dimes, utilizing his legs to pick up yardage as well. We'll see how this Urban Meyer situation plays out, but certainly for the Jags, it is good to see Trevor Lawrence look like the quarterback that they wanted to see with that number 1 overall pick as a quote-unquote generational prospect. James Robinson is going to come up as well, getting utilized much better these last couple weeks, just resuming his dominance from last season. Such an excellent contact balance, do-it-all running back, breaks tackles, good vision, good acceleration. What a find he was. Then at the receiver spots, Laviska Shenault going to go up, really having to lean on him with the injury to DJ Chark, but Laviska, more of a raw player coming in, starting to get open over the middle of the field a little bit more, not just being a guy that can, be that catch and run threat, although he is excellent at it. So climbing up for Laviska Shenault. Jamal Agnew also was an interesting signing as a kick returner, and he's the guy that had that massive 109-yard kick return touchdown against the Cardinals. But getting involved as a receiver this week, actually a really nice contested toe-dragging sideline catch in this game. So the converted corner showing some good hands. Then at tight end, Dan Arnold. Say what you want about the trade here, as they gave up on C.J. Henderson to acquire Dan Arnold. But the converted receiver continues to develop his game as a tight end, now on his third team in about 6 weeks of NFL action. But he can play. He can catch the ball. He can get open over the middle of the field. He's an interesting mismatch problem, and he continues to climb. Then we have Jawan Taylor at right tackle, is playing his best football so far. A young tackle in development. Good to see that for the Jags, whose tackle situation has not been ideal for the last couple of years. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we have Devon Hamilton going up +1. Well-coveted, run-stuffing defensive tackle, doing just that as a part of a rotation on the inside there. Dwayne Smoot going to go up 2, but they've done a little bit of everything with him as well, sliding him inside the tackles a little bit on pass rush downs. But he has just been a very sound rotational player since he came into the league as a third-round pick out of Illinois. An impressive 15 pressures as a pass rusher so far on just 107 snaps. So Dwayne Smoot, some positivity for the defense. But that's about it for the defensive side of the ball. For one of the worst defenses in the league, as Miles Jack is going to drop down. Just needs to play better football. He's one of the more handsomely paid linebackers in football. Needs to tackle better, needs to cover better. It's that simple. Tyson Campbell also has been off to a slow start. You know, rookie cornerback is a tough ask, but he is playing poorly. It was effectively a first-round pick, getting taken 33rd overall, I believe. Then we have the Bengals side of the ball. Joe Burrow going to go up. I really do believe Joe Burrow has earned the right to be in the top 10 quarterback conversation. Since he came into the league, his processing and decision-making has been borderline elite, paired with really good accuracy. You know, deep ball accuracy has come back after, you know, a rough go of it in a small sample size as in his almost said freshman, in his rookie season, sorry. But yeah, the playmaking here behind this terrible offensive line is just remarkable. He's got the Bengals 3-1 and playing outstanding football, especially the last 2 weeks. Been one of the best quarterbacks in football. So Joe Burrow ascending. Then the wide receivers, Trenton Irwin getting involved in a rotational role, coming down with some balls. And then Jamar Chase, kind of the consensus rookie of the year right now, with how slow of a start these quarterbacks are off to. +1, 80 to an 81 for Jamar Chase, who continues to dominate. Then we have tight end CJ Uzama from last week going up. Now this week he is on fire. Last week he went up for his blocking. This week it's the run after catch ability and ability to kind of separate over the middle of the field. Get involved in this Shanahan offense in the receiving game. A pleasant surprise for this Bengals offense. He could be a fourth playmaker for what is a very talented group of receivers, not to mention Joe Mixon as well. Then on the defensive side of the ball, Mike Hilton is going to come down. Different scheme, different team, just not as good as he had been in Pittsburgh. Also had a down year last year for Pittsburgh, by the way. Pretty decent free agent signing, at least contractually, for Mike Hilton. He's got to play better. And then all three linebackers for the second week in a row going up. These were all mid-round picks with a lot of upside, and it's been really fun to see this group come together. It's a great example of kind of drafting and building your team with complementary skill sets. Again, I'll echo what I said last week. You have the nickel linebacker in Akeem Davis-Gaither, the do-it-all middle linebacker in Logan Wilson, and then another do-it-all player in Jermaine Pratt. But both Wilson and Pratt, slightly different skill sets. You know, I think Pratt a little more athleticism, sideline to sideline. Wilson a little bit more physical over the middle. All three of these guys play off of each other very well. They are used very well on this defense as well, and well-deserved boosts for all three of them. Could continue to grow into one of the better linebacking tandems in the entire league. And then just some notes here. Trey Hendrickson continues to play very good football. He gets a plus note after going up last week. And then BJ Hill, again, a player I really like, and he is rated appropriately, I believe. But if he continues to play at the level he's playing at, he will continue to go up. He's not even a full-time starter for the Bengals at the moment. Then we have the Panthers at the Cowboys game, starting with the Panthers. Both running backs here stepping up with the injury to Christian McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard, Rodney Smith being kind of the focal point of the receiving back room there. Very reminiscent of this team's ability to get the running back position to play well with Mike Davis last year. Two different skill sets here. Hubbard, a little more of a straight line speed guy. Rodney Smith, more of that contact balance style. Typically those contact balance kind of quicker than fast types of dudes do tend to be better in the receiving game. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. But both players stepping up. Good to see for the Panthers. Then two receivers going up here. DJ Moore getting some love here. He has been phenomenal and a big part of Sam Darnold's success through the first month of the season. And then Brandon Zylstra doing what he can with every opportunity that he gets, going up again for the second week here. Some notes here. Dennis Daly getting the start at left guard over Pat Elflein this week and being an immediate upgrade there. So could be due for a boost if he continues to play well. Not exactly the best Cowboys interior defensive line. So let's see it another week there on him. And then just defense all around, all three levels that we've been praising to start this season, really dropping the ball this week. The steam has been taken off of this Panthers defense a good bit now that they have played a really good offense in Dallas. So just a lot of different players to kind of keep an eye on, potentially dropping down if they continue to play like this. But it's still a young team that could go the other way and result in more boosts. Then for the Cowboys, a lot of the same players that went up last week stepping up again here. This is kind of how you have those surprise seasons, is you get surprise players like this to step up and consistently play well. So Dalton Schultz, +2, 74 to a 76, looking like a very, very legitimate tight end, do-it-all player. Runs routes, catches the ball very well, decent after the catch, and really improving from his college days as a blocker. So the ascension of Dalton Schultz has been heavy. Then Terrence Steele has been heavy as a blocker out there, mauling dudes in the run game. He has absolutely held his own and made it so Dallas hasn't really had to worry about the La'el Collins suspension. It's just such a big deal to have a player like this that could probably also play guard, that just looks very competent, that can step in as the season goes on once La'el Collins gets back. Then Osa Odigizua continues to play well, getting after the quarterback, defending the run well as well for a smaller interior defensive lineman. Really the best interior piece for them by far. What a find he has been. And then in the secondary, Anthony Brown has been really good ever since he got roasted by Antonio Brown in that season opener, which is going to happen. Antonio Brown is phenomenal. But yeah, Anthony Brown has really settled down. He's a super physical corner, can play a little slot, play a little outside. And then Trayvon Diggs, of course, definitely a star of the week candidate there as well. 5 picks through 4 games, although it is worth noting that he did get beat a few times in this game despite having 2 really impressive interceptions, a very Marcus Peters-esque performance this week. But I will take 2 picks any day of the week when they are picks that he really has to go out of his way to create. If you're getting beat 4 times in a game, I'll take 2 picks over that any day of the week. Next up, we have the Browns at Vikings game. We did Baker Mayfield as our dud of the week, but he's not the only one going down for this Browns offense that has not been very good ever since that Chiefs game, and we've seen this Chiefs defense not really be able to stop anybody anyway. Jedrick Wills is off to a really rough start. My critique on him was his footwork coming out, and Wills has really struggled in pass protection. He also got injured in this game, so it could be a little bit of time before we see Jedrick Wills reascend here. Still a young player and has a really bright future, but has kind of had Baker running for his life a little bit this year. Then Wyatt Teller is going to come down. He was one of the more hyped up, kind of high-rising players last year, and he's still been very good as a run blocker. But I did point out coming into the year in the Browns deep dive that his pass protection has a lot of work to go, and he's actually been closer to a liability in pass protection than he has been a strength. So it's definitely worth noting, maybe a little bit of a one-dimensional player with Wyatt Teller, who I do believe was getting crowned as one of the best guards in football way too early last year because of some phenomenal games he had last year. But still plenty of time for Teller to develop. Still a young player with a lot of upside. And then onto the defensive side of the ball, Myles Garrett was another star of the week candidate. Really 3 out of 4 games so far, Myles Garrett has dominated And, they didn't end up winning that Chiefs game, but he was incredible there. The last 2 weeks, Myles Garrett has almost single-handedly shut down opposing offenses. He is in the conversation with Aaron Donald. And a couple more performances like this, he will become a 99 overall player and one of the best players in football, in my opinion. He already is, but entering the conversation for the best player in football, which is not putting it lightly, I would say. So he's been incredible. Hasn't exactly gone up against the best offensive lines, and when he did face Laramie Tunsil, he was a little more quiet. So that's maybe the one hesitation on him being a 99 if you need one. Then we've got Malcolm Smith continuing to just be super solid all around, just incredibly smart and steady as a cover player. He's been better as a tackler and in run defense these last couple of weeks. Just a stabilizing force for this linebacking core. And honestly, I would bet has been a good kind of mentor player to play next to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who is currently PFF's highest rated linebacker through the first month of the season. Player that pretty much everybody and their mother thought should have been a first-round pick, ends up falling into the second round. Just a total steal for the Cleveland Browns. And with his health conditions not seeming to be an issue, the sky's the limit for JOK as this kind of modern outside linebacker, joker type of player, which is just perfect considering his acronym for his name is JOK. So he's been awesome, making plays in the backfield, been a good cover player, exactly what he was at Notre Dame, basically doing it at the NFL level, which is good to see. Greedy Williams, a hell of an interception, getting starting reps this week against the Vikings. Just outstanding play. Shows off the speed, ball tracking ability, was sound in coverage all game long. Greedy, another player that I thought was a steal for the Browns that belonged in the first round. Just continuing to draft incredibly well. And Grant Delpit, you name it. Like, the second round picks for the Cleveland Browns have been just stupid good. And Grant Delpit, who missed his rookie season due to a really unfortunate injury, was out there, had a really nice pass breakup. I can't remember exactly who he was covering, but covering an out route, showed the length and the man coverage ability. He's not even a full-time starter for them with the safety rotation they have. But man, they have some exciting young players on this Cleveland Browns team, and this defense is playing lights out. Then we've got the Minnesota Vikings. Armon Watts has been a good run defender up front as a part of that defensive tackle rotation, a mid-round pick from last year. Eric Kendricks, one of my favorite players in the NFL, but he's not playing very good football right now. Seemed last year to really be taking a step up from his biggest weakness being run defense and tackling. Well, off to a rough start this season. 5 missed tackles in the first month of the season, not ideal, and has not been an asset in the second level of this defense. Cameron Dantzler is going to go up. A little bit frustrating that it's taken so long for him to get significant playing time, honestly, because of what he showed really in the last 6-7 weeks of last season. This is a guy with length and speed and really good man coverage technique that if he can get more playing time and become a more do-it-all, zone corner for this Mike Zimmer defense that does run a lot of different coverages, he has a ton of upside, could be this team's Xavier Rhodes. Good to see him out there this week against the Browns and playing really well. That should not change for this defense. He could be their best corner very quickly at this pace. Then just some notes here. Adam Thielen has not been particularly good, especially when I do view him very highly. So I think he's up there at like an 87 or an 88 right now. He has just played like a decent number 2 so far this season. Still have a lot of respect for Adam Thielen. I'm going to give him a little bit more time to turn this thing around, but he surely has not lived up to his own expectations. And then just again for the Vikings, the offensive line, complete disaster. Ezra Cleveland and Udo, the right guard, looked like they were playing pretty good football for the first few weeks. Go against Cleveland and just getting obliterated. Rashad Hill at left tackle, a nightmare against Myles Garrett. The Vikings just can't figure out offensive line at all. It's been their problem for years. Then on to Detroit at Chicago. Jamal Williams going to go up. He's been that kneecap-biting, bruising running back for this team, playing really, really well, fighting for tough yards, breaking tackles, really good pass protector, decent catching the ball to the backfield when he needs to as well. Just good do-it-all, backup running back. one of the better backups in the league for sure. Khalif Raymond getting a ton of looks here for Detroit, who's basically been in the same game script every week where they're coming from behind and Jared Goff feels like he's throwing the ball 35 times in every second half. Well, Khalif Raymond is the best separator on this team. He might be 5'8", and his hands have surely not been like amazing, but he's been a go-to part of this offense. Probably not like a long-term answer there, but keep an eye on Khalif Raymond in like deeper fantasy football leagues. I feel like he's gonna have a lot of volume this season. And then I do have a note on Amon-Ra St. Brown, who he lowered last week. He had played over 100 snaps the first 3 weeks, wasn't getting open, wasn't catching the ball, but this week much more involved. If he plays like that again, he will be going up. But on the defensive side of the ball, Charles Harris, the second week in a row, former first-round pick, coming in here. But he's got 3 legit sacks in 3 weeks. He's getting basically starting playing time here. Hell, he's been a better pass rusher than Trey Flowers for Detroit. And he's interesting. I mean, he has some pass rush moves. He has some explosiveness, a former first-round pick. If he keeps playing like this is going to be a steal for Detroit. I wouldn't bet on it necessarily, but definitely worth keeping an eye on. Then for the Bears, really not a lot to go around here. I thought Justin Fields played okay, but also some moments in there that were a little bit head-scratching. So just going to leave Justin Fields there, even though a lot of hype on him. People probably wanting him to go up. He did play well, but he was really bad the week before as well. Let's see it again against a real team. Detroit's defense, one of the worst in the league. But Damian Williams did really step up. If Detroit has done one thing at a decent level, it's defend the run and play physical up front. So good to see Damian Williams step in, the opt-out last year. And I know Montgomery got hurt. So to have an explosive back that can break some tackles in Damian Williams, you shouldn't miss too much of a beat there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, really just one player standing out, and that's Travis Gibson, rotational edge player there. Bigger body dude, doing a really good job against the run and has had some good pass rush moments in there as well. Then on to the Giants upset over the Saints. Daniel Jones gonna get the respect he deserves, going up for the second week in a row, playing very good football. And I'm not even gonna say anything bad about him this week. Just all around, throwing dimes around the field, leading a comeback here, and uncorking a deep ball to John Ross with great ball placement. Just all around has not been the issue for the Giants this year. I don't know how much higher his ceiling is than this, but we'll continue to find out. And then we've got Kadarius Toney plus 171 to a 72. The run after catch ability really shining through. Did have a drop in this game, but just to see him so just easily making NFL defenders miss is really fun to see. Like his quick twitch athleticism with the ball in his hands, you can see what they like in him after spending a first-round pick on him. I'd like to see them continue to get even more creative with Kadarius Toney and feature him more in the offense. John Ross got to get some respect, just showing up. Big touchdown in this game. They don't win this game without John Ross. And I don't know how many more of those he'll have in him this season, but good to see it in there at least. And then Andrew Thomas, man, the most resounding source of optimism for the Giants this season is their number 4 overall pick last year. My number 1 tackle in last year's class has been outstanding. Really, really good to see. That is a critical position at left tackle, and I think you can assimilate a lot of his success to Daniel Jones' success as well. Giving him that blindside protection just has not been someone you have to worry about. I think he's only given up 1 pressure to the first 4 weeks of the season, and he had a challenge this week against a good Saints pass rush. Then for the Saints, Jameis Winston is going to go up, throwing some really accurate deep balls, taking care of the football, no turnover-worthy plays this week. Just an impressive all-around game from Jameis Winston. Taysom Hill not going to go up because he's listed at that quarterback position, and nothing he's doing at the quarterback position has been all that important, but his ability with the ball in his hands and the way that they use him is a legitimate threat. So boosts to his trucking, ball carrier vision, all that kind of stuff. If you want to talk about Madden rating for a second, but that's real stuff too. Taysom Hill is really difficult to catch in the first place and then bring down. He had a huge touchdown where he was dead to rights and just got through it in traffic. Was like Adrian Peterson-esque, or at least reminded me of some of those old Adrian Peterson runs where he would just somehow escape massive piles of defenders. But then James Hurst continues to just play really good tackle when they call on him. He's been not just like a plug-in tackle where you don't have to worry about him as a swing man, because they have those two great tackles, of course, here ahead of him. But I think it was Armstead out in this game, Hurst playing left tackle. Not just someone you don't have to worry about, but an actual legitimate strength for the New Orleans Saints this week. One of the best backups in the league, and someone that I think should be getting looks heading into next year as kind of a veteran signing to be a starter somewhere. Teams like Miami, among other teams that really need tackle play, should be looking at a James Hurst. I think he's a starting caliber player that's been proved now for a couple years. Then we have Deontay Harris, the ascension of 5'7", 5'8" receivers. We had Raymond for Detroit. This was a bit I had, not even a bit, just a take I had coming into the year that the modern NFL really opens up the floor for guys like Deontay Harris to have success. He can separate. You can't hit him down the field in the modern NFL because of the rules. And if you can separate and you have good hands and you're as good after the catch as Deontay Harris is, you can exist and be a starting caliber receiver. And I think Deontay Harris continues to climb, and he's probably the best receiver that they have right now with Michael Thomas out. Juwan Johnson's been really good too. Very limited snaps, but this was another take of mine last year, was that Juwan Johnson should convert to tight end. The Saints agreed. They make the full change, and he's got, 3, maybe even 4 touchdowns this year? Just big-bodied, reliable pair of hands, a mismatch problem. Former receiver coming out of Oregon. Didn't have the speed to play that position, but he's beefed up a little bit. He's blocked pretty well, and that's been an impressive conversion there by Sean Payton, who continues to find ways to just look at this list. You have a 5'7" receiver, you have a quarterback, running back type of dude, and a converted receiver tight end. Like, this is what Payton does, is he finds skill sets and finds ways to deploy them. Just super impressive stuff from the Saints offense. Andrews Pete continues to suck. I didn't feel like lowering him this week, but you can pretty much pick any week. Just giving up massive amounts of pressures this year. I just don't get it with Andrews Pete. I don't get what the Saints see in him. Could be going down again next week. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Albert Huggins, Tano Passanio, who we talked about in last week's Studs and Duds. Just two really good NFL scouting pickups here. Albert Huggins never really has gotten a true opportunity, but a really good run defender as a part of that rotation this year. And then Tano Passanio, just another kind of hybrid player that they use really well. He'll come in, he'll play some nose tackle, he'll play edge. He can really do everything, but he's using that length and is playing a much more physical brand of football than he has in the past, especially going back to like his Chiefs days. But yeah, he's been a good player the last couple of years, and the Saints did a really good job to find him, make him a part of that rotation. Then you have Peyton Turner, another kind of just freaky hybrid defensive end type. And he's been doing a little bit of everything for them as he gets to be a part of this big rotation with these defensive ends. But a first-round pick, and he's been a little better than I probably expected. Hasn't been amazing, but he's been a contributor to one of the best defenses in the NFL. And then Pete Werner, their second-round pick, was incredible this week as well. Super physical run defender, a consistent tackler, and he's been in good position in coverage as well. So looking like a good second-round pick there out of Ohio State. And then I guess rounding out the Saints draft analysis here, because Paulson Adebo, I raised him in last week's video because he was sticking with guys even though he wasn't grading out particularly well, if you want to talk about PFF. But my God, he was the point of attack of the Giants passing game this week, really getting lost out there, gave up almost 200 yards through the air and did look like a rookie corner. So it's going to happen. I still like Paulson Adebo, but looking like a mistake probably for raising him last week. We're going to take that point back. Now on to the Titans at the New York Jets. Really just a bunch of no-namers for the Titans that are stepping up. They've had some injuries there. So Jeremy McNichols was kind of their best offensive player in this game, outside of course, Derrick Henry and Tannehill, but was just kind of their next playmaker. We know that Henry's not a weapon in the receiving game, and that's what Jeremy McNichols has been for them. He had some huge runs. I don't think they win this game without Jeremy McNichols. So he's going up. Shifty, scat back, good compliment to Derrick Henry. Chester Rogers as well has just been solid. He's a really fluid athlete. It's just like ball skills and consistency with his hands that have always held him back, and I think that's always going to be the case with him. But he applies that quickness and athleticism to his route running, and he was getting open and making some plays for the Titans this week, so he's looked pretty good. Tommy Hudson getting involved as a rotational tight end, good blocking in there. And then Amani Bledsoe as a part of that edge rotation, doing a really good job in run defense for them as a really big-bodied, like 280-pound outside linebacker in this system, but doing a good job there. So just some no-names there for the Titans. And then for the Jets, getting their first win on the season, a lot to talk about here. So Ryan Griffin continues to be a good pickup for the Jets, now getting to block in this Shanahan wide zone style offense, looking really good as a blocker here. And then on the defensive side of the ball is where the majority of the movement is going to come here. But I do have some notes on players that played really well that just didn't quite get boosts this week. So Zach Wilson, who went down 2 points last week, the first 3 weeks were really ugly for Zach Wilson, or at least weeks 2 and 3. So I want to see it one more week before I boost Zach Wilson up. Those that have been around the channel know I love Zach Wilson. I still think he's got a bright future. I don't know if this is the week to give him that boost or not. Keelan Cole is going to get a positive note as well, just making plays really from start to finish in this game, so he could be due for a boost in the future. And then Elijah Vera Tucker, who we actually dropped last week, was off to a slow start, but really good this week in pass protection. So one more week could determine if he's got his grounding underneath him, a highly drafted first-round pick this year. But back to the defensive side of the ball, Quinnen Williams is going to go up. He's just doing it all up front. He gets off blocks so easy in the run game, and he's also getting after it as a pass rusher. His breakout continues to ascend, and could be looking like one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL when this season is all said and done. Then we got John Franklin Myers, really nice fit as that defensive end in this 4-3 defense, kind of Eric Armstead-esque. But Franklin Myers actually has a little bit more juice than Armstead. Just explosive plays, like on a weekly basis from him. And I've been really impressed by what he's shown. Bryce Huff as well. I mean, one of my better, like, diamond in the rough calls from the 2019 draft class. He was originally like my 4th best pass rusher. I ended up lowering him because he didn't even get a combine invite, and there just was no buzz on him whatsoever. He's also the only NFL player that follows me on Twitter because I liked him so much. But I ended up dropping him down to like a 3rd to a 4th round grade, but I still really liked him. When they got him as an undrafted pickup, I was like, this guy's going to be a diamond in the rough pickup, and he's been an outstanding pass rusher for the Jets. I don't know if Carl Lawson would have given them too much more than what Bryce Huff is bringing, at least in the first month. I don't know how sustainable that is going to be, but man, he's been explosive. And then Sheldon Rankins, too, as the kind of first guy off the bench, has been really difficult to block. Looks really quick and healthy, just kind of beats you in a lot of different ways. So, yes, the Lawson injury sucked, but you've got some really good just good defensive linemen all around here. And we didn't even talk about Florenzo Fatukasi, who's been a monster as well. You guys know I love him. It's a running joke on this channel that I have to mention his name every time I talk about the Jets, so there you go. But yeah, this Jets D-line is really good, and that's without Carl Lawson out there. And then these young kind of slot-style corners looking really good too. Javelin Guidry, another player from that 2019 draft class. I think I actually said the Jets got the 2 best undrafted pickups in the entire league with Huff and Guidry. So it's been really fun to see those guys play so well. What's super fascinating about Javelin Guidry is they're playing him outside. And this has become a trend around the league that we've talked about as well with 5'9" corners having a lot more success. Darius Williams with the Rams really highlighting that trend, but it's becoming more and more popular. Seattle's got their guy too. His name's escaping me, but Guidry's a smart player, ton of speed, really good tackler, playing outside this week against the Titans and looking really good. So that's fascinating. He has a crap ton of upside with his athleticism. And then you got Michael Carter as well, looking like an outstanding mid-round slot corner draft selection, smart player coming out of Duke. And yeah, I mean, he's just been very solid. He has not been getting beat in coverage, and he's been locking down that slot spot. So a corner was the biggest position that the Jets needed to develop. And yeah, they're 1-3 or whatever, but with the way this defense is kind of shaping up, you can kind of see everything falling into place other than the linebacker spot. But we also had Hall move up last week. They've got some safeties here that can get there. I would say Salah's doing a pretty good job with this defense as a whole. And then Matt Amendola, their young kicker, is going to go up as well. He's been fine. So next game, we got the Texans at the Bills. Very little to take away from this game. There was rain in this game. It was a 40-point blowout. Difficult to kind of find, pick and choose your studs and duds here. Davis Mills obviously going to be a dud. A lot of people saying this was a Nathan Peterman-esque performance. This time against the Buffalo Bills instead of for the Buffalo Bills. But regardless, it was bad. It was 4 picks in this game. I think he had like under 100 passing yards when it was all said and done. Just brutal. Absolutely brutal. It was just kind of I will shout out Mike Renner, PFF podcast. He said the Texans lit this pick on fire. And I totally agree. Like, what is the point of Davis Mills here? This team's going to be drafting a quarterback next year anyway. Should have used that 3rd-round pick on a more, I can't say more valuable position, but just a more valuable player. Looking like a nightmare with Davis Mills. And then the defensive line has been kind of a bright spot for the Texans. Roy Lopez was a late-round pick. He's been really good against the run. DeMarcus Walker, veteran, kind of hybrid defensive end, has been kind of rotating around. Charles Omenihu, very similar player who went up last week. So they're finding a spot for these bigger-bodied kind of hybrid ends here with this 4-3 front. And then Malik Collins has been definitely the most pleasant surprise for the Houston Texans, at least on the defensive side of the ball. He's been a leader up front, and setting the tone in the run game is something he's never really done. He's always had kind of burst off the ball and been a decent pass rusher. But coming over from, I think it was the Raiders last year, he has kind of bought into this underdog mentality and has been a good mentor for this young defensive line that again, has been a bright spot for the Texans. Then for the Buffalo Bills, we've got some boosts on both sides of the ball here. So Dawson Knox, the breakout continuing. Great touchdown catch this week. Been really impressed by Dawson Knox, who was on my top 10 breakouts list. That's off to a good start. Tommy Sweeney, the other tight end here, has been just kind of a decent rotational piece worth noting. And then Cameron Lewis and Jaquan Johnson getting significant playing time this week. Rotational kind of backup defensive backs, really, but both playing well. Defensive back depth was a question heading into the year. We had, Dane Jackson out of Pittsburgh go up last week. So they've had some other players that weren't supposed to be good this year kind of step up and look pretty solid, which is good coaching from the Buffalo Bills. Just some notes here from the offensive side of the ball. So we got Spencer Brown and Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams playing right guard in this game. He's been a bad guard in the NFL, but a very good tackle. They gave him a $33 million contract this offseason, and they drafted Spencer Brown in the 3rd round. I find this to be a fascinating kind of experiment, I suppose, from the Bills, because they have a good tackle duo, but they really pursued these tackles in the draft. Spencer Brown has a ton of upside. He was out there. He played okay. Kind of looked like a solid 3rd-round rookie. But with Williams kind of getting overrun at guard, it is kind of, I would not keep I wouldn't keep this lineup is basically what I'm saying for the Bills. Even if Spencer Brown has upside and looked okay at tackle and they eventually want to make him the franchise probably right tackle there, I would go back to what you had with Williams at tackle where he's much more comfortable. And then Cole Beasley also is about a week away from going down. He just hasn't been that same factor as he was last year. He's rated as one of the top slot receivers in the NFL. Big game against the Chiefs this week. They're going to need him to make some big plays, I think, but Emmanuel Sanders has kind of overshadowed Cole Beasley at this point. Next, we have the Colts-Dolphins game. Minimal movement for the Indianapolis Colts. It was kind of a weird game. Just kind of, fumbled punts and just kind of sloppy, weird football in this game. But Carson Wentz has been solid. I think his arm talent right now is looking a little bit weaker than normal because I don't think he has as good of a foundation with his 2 ankle injuries to throw off of. But beyond kind of a lack of velocity on some of his deeper throws, he's taking much better care of the football. He's taking what's there. And, he was a big reason the Colts were able to win this game. He just played very good, sound football, which has been the issue with Carson Wentz, right? We know he can make really incredible plays when they need to lean on him, but it's been the structure that's been lacking. And I think it's a good sign to see that against a really tough Dolphins defense that was after Carson Wentz all game. His offensive line was terrible in this game. You'll see in the notes, Eric Fisher, a negative note. He's coming off a tough injury, so it's tough to know if he really is this bad now or if he's still recovering. He did seem to be kind of rushed back. And then Ryan Kelly was really bad in this game too. So despite bad offensive line play, despite bad receiving play, Carson Wentz has hung in there and played pretty good football. Then we have Jonathan Taylor, just huge game. Like, he dominated this game. He's kind of the best player in the field for the Colts. And, going to go up for Jonathan Taylor. Also a note on Kemoko Turay showing up this week. A huge game. I believe he had 2 sacks, very legit sacks at that. But it's the Dolphins' offensive line. So I'm going to wait before giving all of the credit to Kemoko Turay there, as you'll see both tackles going down. So Austin Jackson has been, train wreck, nightmare. I don't know if those cliches do it justice. This has been one of the worst first-round draft picks of the decade. Like, my God. He was supposed to be the guy that helps this offensive line for Tua, and he's been a complete and utter liability. He's been one of the worst offensive players in the entire league, if not the worst. He's just been a turnstile at left tackle. So a player that is still young, has some physical upside, but my God, it has been bad. As it has been with Liam Eichenberg, not quite as bad. Like, he's hung in there a little bit better. And it is good to see him finally kind of stabilize and get right tackle reps. I think long-term this will be what's best. And I do believe in Liam Eichenberg, but he also has been playing very poorly. So on the plus side, he's won the job. On the downside, he doesn't look like a very good rookie. And then for the defense, they played pretty good this week, especially up front. So John Jenkins, this guy just gets better year after year. He's over 30 years old. I think it started with the Bears, and it's been the same here for Miami. Just outstanding run defender up front. You're going to get positive notes on Ogba and Jalen Phillips. Ogba's been one of the more impactful defensive players in the league this year. If he keeps it up, he's going to go up. And then Jalen Phillips also kind of bursting onto the scene this week. Again, kind of difficult to know, like, what's Eric Fisher's situation right now. He's been kind of rushed back, and he's been terrible. But Jalen Phillips, if he has even half of the game he has next week, he should be going up. And then Jerome Baker got that big contract in the offseason, looking like a smart decision from the Dolphins. He's having a very good year, playing better both in run defense and in coverage this season. So, little good, little bad for the Dolphins. Offensive line continues to be a mess. Next up, we have the Chiefs at Eagles game. A lot of movement for the Chiefs. Again, some good, some bad here. Good, definitely going to be under Tyreek Hill. The touchdown, he had 3 touchdowns in this game, but I think it was the first one where he caught the ball surrounded by like 6 Eagles defenders, and then he just warps away from all of them, finds a lane, and somehow turns it into a touchdown. That's Tyreek Hill. Like, he is, God, I don't want to say the best player in the NFL, because that's not what he is, but he is the most game-breaking, game-changing player in the NFL. So he's going to go up. And then the 3 tight ends here, the receiving core for the Chiefs has not been very good, and they've started to get more of these tight ends in the rotation. So Noah Gray and Blake Bell have really been good blockers. The Chiefs have, under the radar, been one of the better running teams in the league so far. And then Joe Fortson's been kind of a red zone machine for this team. Kind of a more slender tight end. But he's been a guy that just gets kind of forgotten about with Kelsey down in the red zone. And Mahomes has found him, I think, 3 straight weeks for touchdowns, or at least he has 3 touchdowns this year. But yeah, he's been a piece for them. And then the offensive line, fascinating here. So Orlando Brown does continue to struggle, and I tried to warn Chiefs fans that he could be a liability in pass protection. coming away from that Ravens system that protected him very well. And so far, that's held up. He is a very poor pass protector. Now, he's contributing to, like I said, one of the best run games in the league, but that wasn't the question with the Orlando Browns. So he wanted to play left tackle. He wants to be paid like it. He's going to have to play much better football than he's been playing at left tackle. But these two rookies, both of which were incredible steals at the time and looking like such, I was incredibly critical of the Packers for passing on Creed Humphrey to take Josh Myers. And Myers has been okay, but he hasn't been anywhere in the same ballpark as Creed Humphrey. And can you imagine Creed Humphrey with the way he's run blocking this year? He's been an absolute mauler up front. Can you imagine that in the Packers' wide zone offense? Man, what a whiff by Green Bay with how good Creed Humphrey has looked so far. And then Trey Smith, +3, 68 to a 71. What a whiff by the entire NFL, shying away from him because of a heart condition that hadn't got in his way in 2 years at Tennessee. I said he was the best guard on film in the draft class. And he's been one of the best guards in the NFL, at least from a run blocking perspective, through the first month of the season. Like, this dude demolishes people up front. He's one of the freakiest run blockers you'll see. Great get off. He's built like a big offensive tackle. Really good at landing his hands and just all around a powerful player. So, such steals for the Kansas City Chiefs, getting Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith to overhaul this offensive line and become a much more physical team up front. You know, they've had more like pass protecting types. Well, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are unbelievably good run blockers for rookie offensive linemen. You can definitely nitpick some pass protection problems for these two, but I think they'll come along. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it's mostly bad. You know, Jerron Reed has not been the signing that they hoped he would. He's just been an all-around bad player for them, coming down for the second week in a row. Chris Jones, this experiment, I'm not a huge fan of it. You know, he's still been getting after the passer. That's not been the issue. But I thought this was maybe going to open up Chris Jones as a run defender, where he's never been a good run defender as a defensive tackle. It's always been his pass rush that makes him so valuable. Well, I thought going out to the edge, we would see him kind of, I compared it to Calais Campbell, where when he's gone to the edge, he's been an elite run defender. It has not been the case with Chris Jones. Just kind of more of the same, not getting off blocks, not being an impact. And he doesn't have the pursuit speed on the edge either. You'll see backs just kind of run by him. So, I don't know. I'm kind of out on the Chris Jones edge project at this point in time. They're also not using him as much as I think they should as an interior rusher on like second down. So, it's been a rough start. At his current position, he's going to go down. I think if they put him back at D tackle, he would resume being an elite player. But even the pass rushing hasn't been as good from where he's playing from. Then the linebacking core really struggling for the Kansas City Chiefs. They need Willie Gay back in the worst of ways. Kansas City seems to be an obvious landing spot for Jalen Smith, who just got released. Ben Neiman really struggling. Anthony Hitchens struggling as he always does. Nick Bolton has not been a particularly impactful rookie. So it's been a bad linebacking core. And then you are going to get a boost to Mike Hughes here this week. The Chiefs love picking up their, troubled / busted former first-round picks. And Mike Hughes is kind of an example of why. He's plugged right in as a starter, and it's been sound really since the season started. So that looks like a phenomenal move to go and get Mike Hughes. Then for the Philadelphia Eagles, Kenneth Gainwell, my RB4 in this class, becoming a lethal weapon in the receiving game, just as he was at Memphis. I mean, he's part receiver, part running back, super explosive player, natural in space, stronger than he gets credit for as well. Ability to kind of fight for tough yardage. So, been fun to see Kenneth Gainwell get more and more opportunity, beating out a lot of other different players on this roster. They ended up letting go of Kerryon Johnson, who looked like he was going to be ahead of him. Boston Scott's done some nice things here, but it's been KG that they go with as their RB2 here. So that's been fun. Jason Kelce is back. I don't know if he's playing hurt in the last couple of years, but just unbelievable levels of run blocking from Jason Kelce. Still a later guy, still not the best pass protector in the world, but man, he has been a force up front. His ability to just kind of get on the move and delete people in space is so fun to watch. Andre Dillard, former first-round pick, as well as Jack Driscoll. So it's kind of a good week for like my Eagles draft takes, other than Milton Williams, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But Andre Dillard, I love that pick. Jack Driscoll, I absolutely was drooling about this player. A second-round grade on him. Kenneth Gainwell, thought was a steal. And all of these guys playing really good on offense this week. Dillard's interesting because they just paid Mailata. I think they like Lane Johnson. You know, if I'm a team like Miami or Cincinnati or anybody that needs a tackle, I am calling Philadelphia and seeing if Andre Dillard could be available because he's a decent player. And obviously was a first-round pick, really good pass protection technique, a really good athlete. Just has kind of been beaten out here by Jordan Mailata. So I would not be surprised if Andre Dillard is on the move this year or in this offseason, because I don't think he's a guard. I don't think he has the power to step inside and play guard. And then Jack Driscoll, kind of a similar player, just very technically sound pass protector, and stepped in at right tackle this week and played well. That said, this defense is really struggling. Fletcher Cox has done nothing this year. He seems to be, he's 31 years old. Wasn't as good last year. It seems to be heading that way for Fletcher Cox. He could be descending very quickly if he continues to play this poorly. Obviously went up against a good interior offensive line for the Chiefs, but it's been all season for Fletcher Cox. Milton Williams as well. Really like that draft pick, and I think he'll get there. I really do. But he played edge in college at a low level of competition. Killed it in the preseason. Looked really good. Looked like he was going to hit the ground running. I think he earned a lot of playing time because of that. But he's been one of the worst defensive players in the NFL. He is getting absolutely demolished in the run game, getting moved off the spot, not getting off blocks, making any plays. And he has 0 pressures this season. Like, he's been a useless player for the Eagles. I love Milton Williams. His athletic upside's incredible. Showed some flashes in the preseason. But he's got to come down. He's been a big problem for the Eagles. They kind of got to get him off the field, honestly. Eric Wilson, going to drop down too as well. I thought this was a good signing, and for whatever reason, he's been pretty much useless for them as well. Not in the right spot in coverage. He's been missing like every other tackle, it feels like. So some issues in the front seven for the Philadelphia Eagles. Then Zach Ertz going to get a positive note as well. It was his best game as an Eagle in a long time. So it's been a downward slope for Zach Ertz, but good to see him kind of bounce back this week and could be going back up if he plays like that moving forward. Okay, Cardinals at Rams, the big upset this week for the Cardinals, climbing up to 4-0. Kyler Murray has got to go up. It was a dominant performance from Kyler Murray. You can make a case it was his most impressive all-around performance, limiting the turnovers and playing more in structure. The throw in the red zone kind of erasing some of his question marks as far as can he attack the middle of the field with accuracy. He had a beautiful 10 to 15 yard completion over the middle of the field to Max Williams, who's going to go up here as well. But yeah, Kyler's just playing football at the highest level as you can ask for at the quarterback position right now. He's going to go up for the second week in a row. Max Garcia has been starting at right guard the last couple of weeks. If you go back a few years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, Max Garcia was a quality starting guard in the NFL for the Denver Broncos. But the last 2 weeks, he's been a rock at right guard. They may have found something there at right guard in Max Garcia. And then Max Williams, I kind of regretted comparing him to Gronk a little bit last week, but man, that catch in the red zone, going up, getting it in traffic, it's been just a super stable tight end for them. He's a great blocker. When he's healthy, he's a hell of a football player. This guy's a second-round pick who was kind of compared to Gronk sometimes coming out of Minnesota. So a pleasant surprise for the Arizona Cardinals. And maybe his ability to stay healthy has been the biggest surprise there, knock on wood. I do have a note as far as Marcus Golden goes because he's playing good football this year, but it's been in different ways than he normally has. Like, he's been okay as a pass rusher. It's kind of his mantra. But he's really stepping up as a run defender. So this is where kind of the Madden stuff maybe interferes a little bit because he's been a bad run defender in years past. So, like, again, Madden here, but I raise his block shedding. And because of his archetype, he's like a power rushing type. So his run defending ability is on the way up, even if his like overall grade hasn't changed. But real life analysis here, Marcus Golden's been a huge part of that run defense, was a big part of containing that outside run game this week against the Rams. And then also a note on the running backs here for Arizona. Both have been very solid. I don't know if I'm quite ready to boost either of them yet, but both Chase Edmonds and James Conner look great. Then for the Rams, obviously a disappointing loss this week, but it wasn't all bad. I think you got to lower. Sony Michel here had the fumble and then basically got benched in this one. I tweeted when they made this trade, I was like, I wouldn't have traded multiple mid-round picks for Sony Michel, but that's just me. I didn't understand why they felt the need to do this. Henderson's been sweet for them. So that seems like a waste at this point. He just hasn't been a factor for them. But still, Brian Allen and David Edwards, both going to go up for the second week in a row here. They continue to develop these kind of under-the-radar interior offensive linemen here. And then Johnny Munt, he barely gets any playing time because he's just kind of a wing tight end and they have all these other players. But now for like 3 years for the Rams, he's been just a super consistent kind of edge ceiling run blocker. He's undersized. He's like 230 pounds out of Oregon. But he does his job. He plays his role very well and I think deserves a little bit of respect here. And then Jonah Williams, another seemingly good find. The Rams have kind of found these defensive linemen out of nowhere and on the edge as well. But an athletic guy up front, playing some good run defense, even a couple pressures in there. So just some under-the-radar guys that deserve a little credit for the Rams. And then Van Jefferson, also a player I'm very high on, but every time they call his number, he shows up. And I want to see more Van Jefferson, basically. Next on our slate here is the Seahawks Niners game. This is another kind of weird game. So many 3-and-outs in this game. I feel like there wasn't a ton to take away here. But Freddie Swain for the Seahawks, similar to Van Jefferson, like when they call his number, he looks pretty good. He had some good moments last year and this year now. Been a pretty reliable third receiver for them. I like Freddie Swain. It's been good to see him develop here for the Seahawks. And then Quandre Diggs, we took a point away from him last week, was a really bad start for Diggs, and then lights out in this game. Was a reminder that he is a playmaker, just jumped an underneath pass, picked off Jimmy Garoppolo. Huge game for Quandre Diggs, getting that overall point back from last week. And then for the Niners, look, I'm going to be honest. I still think Trey Lance has about as good of a chance as any quarterback in this draft class to be the Hall of Famer or a Hall of Famer. But he's got a long, long ways to go. And I understand that the offense kind of was more functional when he came in. It really wasn't anything Trey Lance did. There was a busted coverage where he hit Debo down the sideline. And it was his first read. He literally didn't have to do anything, and even the throw wasn't perfect. So you get a huge busted coverage that results in a touchdown for Debo. And then they have kind of a garbage time touchdown drive. But honestly, on a snap-to-snap basis, Trey Lance, and Shanahan said it himself, he looked like a rookie quarterback. And he was just kind of panicking in the pocket. He was scrambling immediately, not throwing with any sort of decisiveness or accuracy or anticipation or anything. I was really, really unimpressed by what we saw from Trey Lance, and I do think he needs to go back to the bench as soon as Jimmy Garoppolo's healthy. As painful as that is for Niners fans to hear, you've now lost 2 in a row. Jimmy Garoppolo is not playing very well. I think it's harmful to put Trey Lance out there when he looks like this. I think he needs a lot more time, and I said that coming in. He's coming from D1 AA, hasn't played in a year, and he's started 1 season. So he needs time. It's always been that deal with Trey Lance for me. As hard as it is to put Jimmy Garoppolo out there, who's going to go down for the second week in a row, I still think Jimmy is the better quarterback, and he also puts this offense in a better position to move the ball, I think. But you're protecting Trey Lance that way too. Some positivity for the youth here. Trey Sermon has, is someone that put a bunch of dynasty money on Elijah Mitchell and a lot of fantasy money. I hate to say it, but Trey Sermon's probably taken that starting running back job back. Although he's not the best scheme fit, like he doesn't have that juice and long speed that Shanahan typically looks for. But he is really good at breaking tackles. He's got good vision. He's taking better care of the football, so he's been much better the last couple weeks. Deebo Samuel has been the best player on this team. He's just been impossible to tackle. He's been making great catches. Obviously had the blown coverage touchdown. Not really anything he did on that, but he has been really one of the better receivers in the NFL for the first month of the season. And then Marcel Harris has been cool as a converted safety linebacker. Was terrible last year, but putting on a little bit of weight and stepping into that kind of nickel linebacker role, kind of the big nickel safety linebacker hybrid type. And he's been solid. He's been good in coverage. He's tackling well, and bright spot in that part of the defense for them. Because even like Fred Warner has actually kind of struggled this year, but good stuff there for Harris. Next up, we have the Washington football team at the Atlanta Falcons, and some good stuff for the offense. No boost for Heineke this week, was really polarizing his performance. But J.D. McKissic, dare I say, won this team the game. He had some incredible plays in the fourth quarter. He had a huge touchdown, and then he had two, right? No, he didn't score the first touchdown, but there was a third down. They needed a touchdown. He made a huge play, making guys miss, picking up the sticks, and then he had the game-winning touchdown at the end of the game. Just making guys miss, super consistent in the receiving game. He looks good. As much as I love Antonio Gibson, and I think they need a better balance between these two, it's hard. It's hard to take J.D. McKissic off the field when he's playing like this, so I kind of understand not giving Gibson the ball a little more. Then you got Ricky Seals-Jones, late career kind of emergence, especially as a blocking tight end here. He's been okay in the receiving game. A good run after catch in this game, making some defenders miss. But decent season for Ricky Seals-Jones so far. But the defense, man, 5 key players dropping. And we've talked about how, on the podcast, we talked about how the Washington football team has been the biggest, one of the biggest surprises this season in a bad way, because this defense has been so bad. And it's all 3 levels, really. Montez Sweat, Chase Young, these guys have not been the dynamic edge duo that they're capable of. Matt Ioannidis seems to have regressed or just isn't the same player that we thought he would be. And then in the secondary, William Jackson was supposed to be a really impactful cornerback signing for them. That's been a downgrade for them from Ronald Darby. He just is not comfortable in this zone coverage system. And Landon Collins has actually been really bad. Gave up another touchdown this week. He's been someone that offenses can go after in coverage. So, yeah, some big names there that are not playing up to their capabilities for the Washington football team. And Ron Rivera's got to get this defense straightened out fast, because the way they won this game is not sustainable. Returning kicks and Taylor Heineke lobbing balls into the end zone, that's not going to get them wins every week. Luckily, they were able to play the Arizona Cardinals that just never seem to capitalize on that. The Atlanta Falcons, who never seem capable of capitalizing on that kind of stuff. But for the Falcons, we had Patterson as the star of the week. But Kyle Pitts, that's another huge surprise from this season, is how underwhelming he's been. And for the first few weeks, you could kind of look at it and make excuses and say, okay, well, they're not finding creative ways to get him the football. And that's still true. But at the same time, he got a lot of targets in this game. He wasn't creating separation. There was catches that he made in college that he wasn't making in this game. There was a play where I thought he probably could have dragged his feet. There was a couple of contested catches. That's kind of where he made his money at Florida. He's a great route runner for a tight end and offers a lot of great stuff. But he has been a disappointment given the expectation that he was going to step into the NFL and be a top 5 tight end right away. That just hasn't been true. I would say he's been far from bad, but given the expectations, he had to come down here from where I had him rated. And then Jalen Mayfield, he's been a meme. I mean, we mentioned Austin Jackson being the worst player offensively in the NFL. That's a lie because Jalen Mayfield exists. They got to take him off the field, man. He's hurting this offense right now. I like the pick. I think he can still figure some things out, but the transition from tackle to guard has been ugly, to say the least, from Jalen Mayfield. And then these cornerbacks, AJ Terrell's playing well. He's just been a solid rookie since he came into the league, continues to climb. But Fabian Moreau, he's another guy that they got to take off the field. I mean, he is getting lost in coverage. No revenge game here from Fabian Moreau against his former team. That was a really bad performance. Gave up a touchdown down the sideline, and he's been getting beat all season long. So I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a seat here pretty soon. And then just a note on Calvin Ridley has continued to really not be a good ball skills receiver. He gets open, we know that. But the expectation was that he was going to set the tone as a number one wide receiver for this team, and he has not been. He has been a wide receiver too, and you're kind of seeing Matt Ryan's tendency to just put it up to his number one wide receiver. It's not working with Ridley. He needs maybe more of a bigger-bodied receiver out there, or for Ridley to start improving his ball tracking and his physicality at the catch point. And Kyle Pitts hasn't been that guy either. So both of those guys have disappointed so far this season. Okay, Ravens at Broncos. The Ravens as a surprise team, kind of overcoming adversity and finding a lot of different players to step up that you didn't know you're going to be able to count on, was another one of my takes in that podcast from yesterday, which I encourage you guys to go check out. But a lot of these players on this list are players that have been surprising breakouts this year. So Lamar Jackson, obviously not a surprise, but he is playing outstanding, and he's been able to win games in a different way, letting the ball loose down the field, showing much better accuracy this season than I think he ever has deep and outside the numbers specifically. He's always been really accurate deep over the middle of the field, and that's kind of where that Marquise Brown touchdown was. That was just a huge play with pressure in his face. I mean, that was one of the best throws of Lamar Jackson's career right there. Marquise Brown's been awesome this year. He had the drops against Detroit, really two drops. You know, the third one was overrated because it got deflected right in front of his face in the end zone. But other than those two drops, Marquise Brown has been a monster this year. Been one of the best deep threats in the NFL. Super good with the ball in his hands. So that's been a dynamic duo there. James Prochet kind of fighting for playing time. You know, you got Duvernay here. You're going to have Bateman coming back soon. It's tough for a guy like Prochet to get on the field, but they kept going to him, and he was making plays. Eric Tomlinson has been playing the Nick Boyle role as the blocking tight end here and living up to it. He did that last year too, so he's been a nice pickup for them. And then on the defensive side of the ball, getting some other guys to step up. So you're getting Broderick Washington, who was a mid-round pick last year, playing really good run defense for them. Calais Campbell has been outstanding this year. Had a down year last year, but looks to be in even better shape and getting after the quarterback at a much higher clip this season. I also should have a plus note here on Justin Madubuike, who I really like and is rated pretty high, but he's been really nice this year. So the front seven has been awesome. And we haven't even talked about Odafe Owe yet, who had another beautiful pass rush in this game. Kind of showing off the length and ability to win that edge, and he's just been a pleasant surprise all around, just from his ability to be such an impact early on. Malik Harrison was really good in this game defending the run. Pernell McPhee, not so much. He's clearly been outplayed by Odafe Owe, which Ravens fans aren't going to complain about, but he looks like a 32-year-old slower edge rusher. He's been getting a lot of playing time, but he has not been getting after the quarterback, or even out being all that good in run defense. And then Anthony Averett, he was kind of a pivot point the second Marcus Peters went down, and he has lived up to what they would have hoped, I would say. You know, he's not Marcus Peters, but he's been very solid. He's been in good position. He's a great athlete. Third-round pick out of Alabama that's been coached by the Baltimore Ravens for, 3 years now? A guy with like 4.3 speed. There's no reason Anthony Averett can't continue to climb and eventually become the player that Marcus Peters is. This is a very high upside prospect, so been very impressed by Averett's impact on this defense, and they've kind of resumed as one of the better defenses in the league very quickly after, kind of having to adjust with some of the movement and injuries that they've had there. So it's been impressive. Then for the Denver Broncos, Drew Lock gonna come down. Just looked disconnected from this team is the phrase I'm going to use. He's never been a guy that plays in structure, but it was even worse this week. Miscommunications with receivers. He didn't have that same energy. It looked like he had been deflated by losing this job to Teddy Bridgewater and clearly was not prepared. If you're the backup quarterback, you have to prepare like you're going to come in, and it looked like Drew Lock had not done that, and that's very discouraging. He was really bad in this game. They couldn't move the ball at all with Drew Lock in there, other than Javonte Williams basically carrying the Ravens defense on a couple runs. He looks awesome. He looks absolutely awesome, man. Just power, vision, contact balance. Melvin Gordon is doing everything he can to continue to get carries here, and he's been good in his own right, but that's not going to last. Javonte Williams looks like he's primed to be a top 10 running back in this league. Then you have Lloyd Cushenberry, continues to play very well as well. Another guy kind of fighting for his job, kind of kicked into gear here. Quinn Miners also played in this game, played really good at left guard. But Cushenberry has held on to that center job. So good for Lloyd Cushenberry. I wasn't even sure he was going to win that job from Quinn Miners, but you can see why they went with him. He clearly is much improved in all facets of the game. And then Alexander Johnson continues to be such a force over the middle of the field. He is Donta Hightower, man. They don't use him deep in coverage at all. He just kind of lurks around the line of scrimmage. He'll line up right over the center on the line of scrimmage, gets off blocks. He's 250 pounds, really good blitzer. He's Donta Hightower, and they use him just like it. So he's going up. Wouldn't be surprised if he's a New England Patriot at some point in his career. Okay, we got 3 games left. Pittsburgh at Green Bay. Actually not going to drop down Big Ben. We dropped him down to a 71 last week. I think he played like a 71 quarterback last week, which is still not good. Definitely could have dropped him, but I think this maybe wasn't the week to do it. But there were some guys on offense that played pretty good. Najee Harris, it's just time to boost him. It's tough because every time he touches the ball, he's just swarmed by defenders. The run blocking hasn't been good, and they're just throwing him a bunch of checkdowns. But he's consistently making guys miss, showing good vision in the run game and power. He is looking like a first-round caliber running back, if that is such a thing. Deontay Johnson, +1. The drop issues have gone away so far this year, knock on wood. But you take away drops from Deontay Johnson, and you have one of the better separating all-around receivers in the league. And he's been great. We're just not always seeing him get utilized because Big Ben's been such a disaster. But then a couple pieces on the right side of the offensive line, a couple veterans. Trey Turner, kind of had a feeling, I think most of us did, that he was going to be a good piece for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he looks a little bit closer to his old self. He hasn't been a Pro Bowler or anything like that, but he's been solid. And then Joe Hagg has been getting a couple starts at right tackle, a veteran that has not been very good the last couple years. I think Detroit, Tampa Bay, but he's been very solid for the Pittsburgh Steelers for what it's worth. We'll see if he's the long-term answer there or not, but it's been good to get a Band-Aid there at right tackle where they desperately needed it. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Chris Wormley, eerily familiar athlete to Stephon Tuitt, 6'5", 300 pounds, really quick player. He's been mostly contributing as a run defender, but he has been honestly outstanding when he's on the field, which is in limited reps because of how much talent they have here. But the Steelers just show time and time and time again that they develop really good athletes at this position, and Wormley is just the next example in that. And then Arthur Maulet has been playing some kind of strong safety slot corner hybrid for this team. They let Mike Hilton go. They do like those dime packages where they have Cam Sutton and Arthur Maulet out there, just like they did with Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton. So Maulet's kind of filled into that role and looks okay. That's another position that the Steelers defense has cranked out players at. Then for the Green Bay Packers, we got a decent amount of movement here. So A.J. Dillon is going to go up, just continues to look good when they give him the football. He's kind of consistently breaking the first tackle. He's been a pleasant surprise in the receiving game as well, just kind of smooth hands for a big guy. So it's been fun to see him get more playing time with Jamal Williams gone. He's been an upgrade there, I would say. just from an explosiveness element. And then Randall Cobb, big week for Randall Cobb. Just, it's crazy. You put a slot receiver on your team and all of a sudden you've got guys getting open on third down. It's weird how that happens. But Randall Cobb looks explosive. He looks like something like his old self. He's got that chemistry with Rodgers. And man, I think Aaron Rodgers was right about this Randall Cobb guy and bringing an actual slot receiver into the building. He was big contributor to this win. Some of these under-the-radar linemen playing really well here for the Packers against an outstanding Steelers pass rush. Jstilloadingg, second week in a row. I mean, he's had to go against Nick Bosa, and now Melvin Ingram, and he's held his own. He hasn't been like a rock star. He's given up a couple of pressures, but he's been a Band-Aid at left tackle against really good competition. So just good to have depth there. John Runyon, on the other hand, I think once they get Jenkins back, with Runyon playing the way he's playing, he's going to hold on to a starting job somewhere. I don't know, because Billy Turner's playing well at right tackle too. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do when they get Jenkins back, and obviously getting Bakhtiari back as well. But I honestly think that you keep Runyon at left guard, you slide Jenkins over to right tackle, Billy Turner into right guard, and then Myers at center. That might be it for Green Bay, and that could be a really good offensive line with how these guys have played. So I am definitely fascinated to see what they do once they get these stars back healthy. But good to see these depth pieces and low-end starters stepping up for them. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Rashawn Gary continues to be a menace. Huge sack this week, just blew through the left tackle, showing off that power he has. Big sack. He's been really nice, keeping that pass rush alive, really, with Zadarius Smith out. Going to be fun to see that pass rush come together with Zadarius Smith when he comes back. Chauncey Rivers has been a decent rotational piece, nothing crazy, defending the run well. And then Preston Smith is going to come down because he's been effectively useless as a pass rusher this season and was pretty bad last year too. It is worth noting that he's off to one of the best starts as a run defender that he's ever had. He's kind of lacked that physicality throughout his career, but he has at least brought that. So he is going to get a boost to kind of his run defense grades here, but the pass rushing definitely coming down. And then Kingsley Keke, who we dropped last week, also had a huge game this week. Big sack, but is not quite showing enough for me to boost him up. He's just been a very inconsistent player. Need to see some more there. Okay, BUCS at Patriots. A rain game here, so you got to be careful, especially with some of the skill players as far as lowering them. The BUCS receivers didn't have the best game out there, but again, the rain game, it's tough. But Ryan Jensen is going to come down. I know that NFL Twitter loves this guy because he has highlight blocks in the run game, but he, for 2 years now, has not been like a very good pass protecting center. I think he's fine, but just needed to come down. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Joe Tryon looks like a hit for the BUCS. He's got so much explosiveness. Had 2 sacks in this game on 4 pressures, and just, he's got length and juice and finesse and power, everything you really look for off the edge. I'm curious to see if, come playoff time, if he takes Jason Pierre-Paul's job, who hasn't been really anything special this year. And then I am going to drop the corners here. Richard Sherman and Pierre Desir, both kind of cheap veteran free agent pickups. Both these guys have traditionally played in very zone-happy defenses. And the BUCS, they put their corners in much more compromising situations as far as man coverage goes, whether it's man coverage straight up or a converted zone-to-man deal. Both these guys looked really rough out there, especially Richard Sherman. When he came onto the field, the Patriots went right at him. They had clearly seen his tape from San Francisco last year, where put him in a third, cover 3 zone on his side of the field, just like he's always been. He's serviceable, but man to man, he's one of the worst man corners in the league right now, just because he is so slow. So while these guys can be Band-Aids while they try to get healthy, I do wonder if they have to go more like cover 3 and if they adjust their scheme with these veteran corners until they can get their other guys back healthy. They have been just decimated by injuries back there. But those guys, more names than functional players on the field right now with Sherman and Pierre Desir. Then for the Patriots, the right tackle situation continues to kind of be a disaster. Justin Herron has been so bad. They're trying to get Yasir Durant in there, who's been better, but still nothing great. They got to get Trent Brown back. Kyle Van Noy has really struggled. I think that's why they're looking at signing Jamie Collins. Van Noy's been missing a ton of tackles, and I don't think Belichick has the patience for that. So he's been bad. And then Jonathan Jones, too. With Gilmore out there, you're leaning on Jones to be another step up in that rotation, to be their number 2 corner, and he has not fit the billing. So it seems like he kind of needs to be in that slot matchup role, and they're not able to do that right now without Gilmore, who just got released, by the way. Like, what the heck? I can't believe they just released Stephon Gilmore. Every team in the NFL is going to be racing to sign him. God, he's probably going to go to the BUCS, isn't he? Last game here, Raiders at Chargers. Alex Leatherwood, man, what a disaster. Raiders fans were constantly telling me how wrong I was when I said this was the worst pick in the first round and how much I laughed at the Raiders. Well, he effectively cost them this game. The offense wasn't good in the first half, but Joey Bosa just turning Alex Leatherwood into a turnstile was kind of the reason the offense played so bad, honestly. Andre James also hasn't been good, by the way. Both those guys, I said, were huge red flags for this offense coming into the year. Raiders fans told me it was going to be okay. This was kind of the example of why maybe not so much. But other than that, things aren't all bad for the Raiders. They fought back in this game. I definitely think they'll be okay and still look like a playoff team. Max Crosby was incredible again. Now, it was against Storm Norton for most of this game, so take it for a grain of salt. But he leads the NFL in pressures this year. I find it so funny that the first 2 years of his career, he was the guy that was getting a disproportionate amount of sacks compared to his pressure numbers and was getting overrated for that reason. And now he leads the NFL in pressures. He has 30 pressures in 4 games, which is absurd, and only 2 sacks to show for it. To put that in comparison, in his rookie season, he had 11 sacks on 45 pressures. So, wow, that's just super ironic. I can't even handle it. But on the defensive side of the ball, Darius Philon had a random huge game this week. I don't know if there's too much to take from that. But worth noting and giving him a little plus. He had 2 sacks in this game. Casey Hayward is going to go up 1. One of the best free agent signings of the year. Probably the best, considering they didn't have to pay him anything. Just plug him right back into Gus Bradley's defense, showing that last year was just kind of a fluky down year from him and not so much age regression. Hayward's never been a guy that necessarily leans on great athleticism. It's football IQ and zone instincts, and he's right back in a zone-heavy system showing those things. He's been one of the best corners in the NFL for the first month of the season. Then Trayvon Merrick, a steal in the second round, really had a great game. Big pass deflection that I think ended up getting called back from a penalty elsewhere on the play. But looking like he's settling in as a good cover safety there to just continue to round out a really good secondary. Nate Hobbs played really well in this game. I want to say that Mullen was out, but yeah, this secondary is actually pretty sweet, which is a surprise from what we thought about this team heading into the year. Lastly here, the LA Chargers, decent amount of movement here. Justin Herbert, second week in a row, he continues to ascend toward the top of quarterback discussions, and I really don't think he's that far away from getting brought up in the top 5 convo. I mean, with Watson not playing, I think it's worth noting. I don't know if I'd put him there quite yet, but man, his accuracy is just so stupid good. Now that he's getting an offensive line, you're seeing his ability to break down defenses really shine through. Super impressive. Like, he can beat you in so many different ways. This week they took away the receivers. So, okay, I'll make Jared Cook and Donald Parham look like superstars. He can hit Austin Eckler underneath. Just can beat you in so many ways. He can extend plays. What an unbelievable turnaround for Justin Herbert. And yeah, well deserved. We just kind of mentioned Eckler, Cook, Parham, all looking really good. Donald Parham is super fascinating. He's got a good mentor there in Jared Cook, who played really well in this game. But just, freaky athlete. He is the reason the XFL needs to come back, which it's going to, because he's not in the NFL if it's not for the XFL right now. And he has a chance to be like, a 10-year just, buddy with Justin Herbert, with both those guys towering over the defense. His ball skills look really good. He's a good athlete. He's a project, but not, I don't know how much of a project he is anymore, I guess. Like, he's been very consistent now for about 10 games. Eckler also going up because he's been really good running the football. He's having his best year on the ground by far. Looks even stronger, really compact player, running through arm tackles. And then Rashawn Slater on the offensive line. I mean, he's off to I don't know if it's quite on that Tristan Wirfs trajectory from last year, but we're getting spoiled now back-to-back years with just dominant tackles coming into the league. And no team needed that more than the Chargers. I think Slater deserves a lot of credit for what we talked about, Herbert getting more time in the pocket to show off his ability to read defenses and develop that part of his game. So just outstanding with Rashawn Slater, +2, second week in a row. And then Keenan Allen is going to come down. He had 2 drops in this game, his 3rd on the season. Very uncharacteristic. You hope you turn that around, but he's going to turn 30 at the end of the year. He hasn't been quite the same separator as he has been in years past. So could just be slowing down a little bit. I'm a big Keenan Allen fan, but let's be honest, he hasn't been that top 10 receiver that we're used to. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Uchenna Nwosu continues to really struggle in this scheme. Just not really finding what his role is, be it a pass rusher, a cover player, whatever they ask of him, he has not stepped up. Actually, Kyler Fackrell has started to become a bigger part of this rotation and has outplayed Uchenna Nwosu so far. So he's been a disappointment for a team that's overall been positive. And then Drew Tranquill has really cemented himself as a full-time starter. It's been limited time these last 2 weeks. Kenneth Murray just went to IR, but Tranquill's a better player right now than Kenneth Murray. Doesn't put himself in compromising situations in coverage. He's tough between the tackles, so Drew Tranquill seems to be a quality starter at linebacker for them. And then Tavon Campbell, second week in a row, getting significant snaps as their 3rd corner. Just a good find. He's got length, he's 6 feet tall, plays in the slot for them. And just another last note here before we get out of here. You look at this and say, all right, well, Asante Samuel's 5'10", Tavon Campbell's 6 feet. Samuel should be the slot guy. No, modern defenses are waking up to the fact that just because you're 5'10", you don't have to play slot. And Asante Samuel had another good game this week. Did give up the huge play to Henry Ruggs, but it was an incredibly difficult ask to cover Ruggs one-on-one that deep down the field. But beyond that, had a really good game again. So just a note, you got a 6-foot slot corner here, a 5'10" perimeter player. These modern defenses are waking up. You don't have to be 6 feet tall, especially in these quarters heavies defenses, to be a really good perimeter corner. And you don't necessarily, inversely, have to be 5'9" to play slot. Tavon Campbell's doing it. Jalen Ramsey's doing it. You got Isaiah Oliver down there for the Falcons playing well. So a bit of a tangent there, but fitting to do it at the end. And that is going to do it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know your comments down below on who rose, who fell. Did I miss anybody? Do let me know down below. Also, please do hit that like button. Really helps me out. And we'll see you guys for the next one. Peace out.